Today I want to share 7 lessons I've learned about how to communicate productively. The first lesson I learned is simple but powerful. Seek first to understand before you want to be understood. So most people do the opposite. They talk more than they listen. Let me give you a quick story to make this clear. Imagine you visit an eye doctor and tell him, "I can't see well anymore." And without asking any questions or examining your eyes, he just hands you his own glasses and says, "Here, these work perfectly for me." And that's exactly what most people do in conversations. They give advice or opinions without understanding the other person's situation or context. But people are much more receptive when they feel understood. So instead of jumping straight into statements, ask questions. Try to have more questions than declarations. And being a good listener doesn't mean you never share your own opinion. It just means you do it after you have understood the other person. So the first lesson is seek first to understand, then to be understood. The second lesson builds on the first one. It's a framework I learned from Alex Hormozi. A.C.A. Acknowledge, compliment, ask a question. And here's how it works. So when someone tells you something, first acknowledge it. That means mirroring or rephrasing what they said to show that you truly listened. So for example, if someone says, "Hey, I had a great day. I went to the gym and ate healthy," you can respond, "Oh, so nice. So you worked out and ate nutritiously. You must feel great." That's acknowledgement. A. And then C. Compliment them. Tie what they said ideally to a positive character trait. You could say, "Wow, that's awesome. You're clearly very disciplined when it comes to your health." And finally, A. Ask a follow-up question. You go deeper. You can ask, "What made you start taking your health more seriously?" Or how do you stay consistent with it? Or in general, how do you do it? And that's also an interesting insight here. The best interviewers and podcasters do exactly this. They ask thoughtful follow-up like, "How so?" Or "What do you mean by that?" And "How did that come about?" So lesson number 2 is use the A.C.A. framework, acknowledge, compliment, and third, ask questions. Lesson 3. The next lesson is remove filler words. People who speak with few words and who talk a bit slower usually come across as more confident and grounded. And the words they do say carry more weight. And that's something I've noticed again and again. And by filler words, I mean all those little sounds and habits like actually, basically, you know, or like. They sneak in when we talk too fast or when we are unsure of what we want to say. But if you slow down and give yourself time to think before speaking, you will use fewer filler words and your sentences will land with more precision. And people will listen more attentively because your words feel intentional and clear. So lesson number 3, remove filler words and slow down your speech. And you will sound more thoughtful, confident, and powerful. The next one is about body language. Something I've personally worked on a lot and still do. Still a lot to learn. And it's about eye contact, posture, and presence. When you keep steady eye contact and an upright posture, you show that you're attentive in a conversation. You show that you're alert and genuinely present. And people notice that. It makes them feel seen. And if you want to take that to the next level, add a little smile, a light smile. And it doesn't have to be exaggerated, but it makes conversations flow more naturally. And smiling makes you more likable and approachable and sets the tone for a smoother, more relaxed exchange. And of course, not every conversation is one where you should smile. Serious topics deserve a serious tone. But in general, when you smile or laugh at the right moments, it softens the interaction and builds rapport. And also, communication isn't just with words, it's with your whole body. Your gesture matter. And charismatic communicators use their hands when they speak. When they list points, 1, 2, 3, they might count on their fingers. So lesson number 4, communicate with your whole body, your eyes, your posture, your facial expressions, and your gestures. They speak before your words ever do. The next one is a bit different, and I learned it from Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. It's about being disagreeable, but in the right way. And if you believe something is important and you stay silent, that silence can become a form of lying. And Peterson says something like, silence to a certain extent is a lie. And that hit me hard because open, honest communication, even when it's uncomfortable, is what drives progress. It's the foundation of free speech and innovation. People exchange different approaches, ideas, and sometimes that means pushing back, challenging an idea, or having a heated debate. But at the end of it, you shake hands and thank the other person because disagreement, when done respectfully, helps both sides grow. You can even say to the other person at the end of the conversation or during the conversation, hey, that's a good point. I didn't know that. Or I learned something. Or you got me. Didn't know that. And even if you didn't learn anything, you still can thank them for an exchange. Of course, not every battle is worth fighting. You don't need to always to debate. We have limited energy or limited focus, so choose your moments wisely. But if you truly believe that your input could make the situation better, say it out loud, even if it's uncomfortable and you don't know the outcome, the consequences. And people might not always like your opinion, obviously, but they will respect you, or they will respect your honesty in general. They will know you're saying what you truly believe, not just what they want to hear. And that's especially important for people who tend to be more agreeable. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to speak the truth, even when it's inconvenient. So lesson number 5, be willing to disagree when it matters. It's not about being rude, it's about being real and speaking your truth, what you think to be true. The next lesson is the person who asks questions leads the conversation. So if you're in a discussion, asking more questions than giving statements gives you a real advantage. Why is that? Because the person asking questions gains more information, understands the other side better, makes the other person feel heard. And of course, you should ask questions genuinely, not as a tactic, but because you truly want to understand. That's the point. And that curiosity helps you clarify what the other person really means. And at the same time, it's a form of protection. When someone tries to manipulate or pressure you, you can stay calm and ask, oh, interesting. What do you mean by that question? Or can you explain that a bit more? And by doing that, you avoid being pushed into corners or agreeing to things you don't believe. Now, I've noticed that people who ask questions stay in control. They are in the driver's seat of the conversation. And that doesn't mean you should only ask questions, because conversations should still be balanced. But questions give you the upper hand because they give you information, clarity, and time to think. And especially in debates, asking questions helps you stay centered. It protects you from manipulative or tyrannical people who just want to dominate the exchange. And by slowing things down and asking calmly, you can push back intelligently, not aggressively. So lesson number 6, the one who asks questions leads the conversation. It's both a communication skill and a defense mechanism. The last lesson for today, use more stories. People remember stories far more than technical tactics or abstract strategies. And if you look at something like the Bible, it's a collection of beautiful stories. And those stories are packed with timeless lessons and deep insights. And that's how humans learn best, through stories, example, and experiences that stick. And someone who's doing that very, very exceptionally is Alex Hormozi. He has the ability to teach concepts, but before he dives into the concept, the tactics, he often shares a story that is related to the tactic or strategy, or makes the point even clearer. So he starts perhaps with a story in one of his books, $100 million Offers, for instance. He shares a personal story and then gives you the step-by-step tactics he went through or things that are relevant to you. But now you understand very much the importance of those steps, and it's not just pure cold execution of tactics or just tactics. You can put them into the right context, and it's way more relatable and personal, and you can maybe remember those steps better because you have that story now. I've realized this also in podcasting. Whenever I make a point through a personal story or a real example, people connect more deeply, or that's my assumption. It makes the message clear, relatable, and memorable. You don't have to tell stories obviously all the time, but if you sprinkle them in conversations from time to time, it makes your communication more personal, emotional, and practical at the same time. So lesson number 7, tell more stories, because people may forget what you said, but they will remember how your story made them feel.